All right, guys, welcome to another edition of Texans Unfiltered. I am one of your hosts, Young Ari Gold, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, John Wade, the Garnet Texan. And John, um, nothing new really this week. Like, is this the first time in a
Dude, well, I
pod
mean,
where there's no new info?
at least nothing bad's happened. But there is new info. I mean, there was a response from him,
Sure.
from Rusty Harden and them. But I mean, they essentially just said, what you expected them to say. Like, there's nothing really groundbreaking in that. So
All of them are
no,
liars.
yep. I mean that's the defense. They're all liars. But at least nothing bad happened this week, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, there was nothing really. The press conference, Nick Caserio press conference talking about the draft and the local shitty media asking the same question, expecting to have a plan for the Texans 2021 season on April 14th or whatever it was. I don't know. She must be new or something because it's April. Uh, so many things can change between now and September. But um, yeah, did you gain anything from Nick Caserio's press conference?
I mean, Nick Casario is a professional.
Yeah,
That's exactly how he answered the questions. He didn't do anything that any other GM wouldn't have done. I mean, first and foremost, like this is a situation unlike anything that any other team has really ever been through. I mean, when you really break it down, like it's such a fluid and odd situation because not only does Deshaun want out with everything that's just going on, like there's not been a situation like this before. So you're asking Nick Casario, who's still trying to figure out, he's probably still trying to figure out how to get from his house to the stadium without using GPS, without using his phone. You think he can do that yet?
yeah, for sure.
Oh, he can.
He seems like a smart guy.
He is a smart guy, but I'm not even sure he's gone home that much because everything keeps happening. Um, but with that all going on, you're asking him to tell you who's going to be the quarterback on opening day, and no one knows. Like flat out, no one knows. I mean, you have Tyrod Taylor, so at least he could be, but Deshaun could still be here. He could still be traded. Like, there's just so many different layers to this situation. Asking him exactly what his plan is now is unfair. And I mean, if he's trying to move him, like maybe that's playing his cards. Maybe he's still telling people we're not moving him to still try and get as much value as he can get out of Deshaun. Like, you've got to allow him to keep some of that close to his vest. And there's no team, no market, no general manager in situations that are half as complicated as this is going to tell you what's going on.
Yeah, I totally get asking the question once. No harm, no foul, right? Ask the question. If you get the answer you're looking for, fantastic. If you don't, like the chances of you slipping up Nick Caserio to give you a full-on 2021 plan, slim to none. So no reason to keep asking. But like you said, there's so many other scenarios and situations that could play out prior to, the first week kickoff, right? Deshaun could suit up. That's one. That's a possibility. May not be a high likelihood of that, but it's a possibility. What if they settle this Friday? I know that they're not. They're going to trial. Maybe Busby, has some more evidence that makes them reconsider, and they settle, and it's only a civil case, and the draft is next Thursday, and a team decides, okay, we can weather the PR storm from civil litigation, and we're going to take that hit. What if he beats all of these women and his defense is right and all 22 women are lying, right? Like we can't deal in matter of facts at this point in regards to either situation, whether it be Deshaun or the plaintiffs, until the courts happen. We have our thoughts and our opinions on it, but there's a chance that he beats all 22. What happens then? What if a quarterback falls? Like falls? What if we hit on a third round quarterback? There's just
What if
so
we find the next Russell Wilson? I mean, it's unlikely.
Right.
Like all these things are unlikely. Like you can't know right now. And like you've
You can't.
nailed it. Like there's even what you were saying, there's also a million in betweens. Like
Yeah.
what if his lawyer shares enough with the Texans that they're comfortable enough putting out to other teams that they're discussing, listen, he's only going to get suspended for 6 games. Maybe, and I mean, teams will take a risk on that if he's only suspended for 6 to 8 games. They'll definitely,
Yep.
and that won't change his value at all. What if they told the Texans enough, like, hey, all this is going to go away? Then the Texans will be less likely to trade him because they want to get full value for him.
Yep.
Like, why trade him for a discount? I mean, still, you either have Deshaun Watson playing for the Texans or you get full value for him. And that is actually more likely, like those two situations out of any of them. He's playing for the Texans or you get more full value for him than anything else. Like all this makes it complicated. It definitely makes it difficult to happen, but nothing has to happen right away. And if he's not traded by the draft, they can't get full value for him. So he's probably, if he plays for anybody, it's going to be for the Texans.
Yeah, I just if he's not traded next Thursday, then he's not going to be traded this season at all. So
Yeah.
they would need. I think they go to court this Thursday, right? Isn't there part of the civil suit start Thursday, according to Harden's response, I believe. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, it's all speculation around this entire situation. But at the end of the day, like, there's just no way for anybody to know what the path looks like for the 2021 Texans come September in April. It's just you can't. And honestly, you could probably ask all 31 other teams, and they'd probably give you the same exact response if they were in the same situation. There's just no way to know. You have no idea what could happen. There could be a quarterback on the block that, I mean, what was Sam Darnold traded for? Like peanuts, right?
Second round
Like
pick.
that's what I'm saying. Like you just never know what could happen. And for them to be like, oh yeah, Tyrod Taylor's our starter in 2021. Here's our plan. We're going to keep Brandon Cooks for sure. And all these, like, it's just like, duh. Like, Tyrod Taylor is the starter if Deshaun's not playing. You pretty much know that.
I mean,
unless a rookie comes in and beats him out.
Most likely. Like, I mean, most likely. There's always a chance that he's not. There's always a chance that, why can't I even think of the name of the former Bengals quarterback that we brought on?
Ryan
Lindley. Lindley? Is that Finley? There we go.
Ryan Finley, right? Yeah.
Finley. I mean, there's always a chance that he comes in and wows people. Like, you just don't know. This whole team has been turned over. Caserio has done an excellent job of bringing in those guys that, I mean, they're back of the roster guys, but guys that are going to be competitive. And that was the whole point, is you get competitive back of the roster guys to build your team around, like to build your base. And he doesn't know who's going to be the starting middle linebacker, much less the starting quarterback, if it's not Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the local media is trash in general. Whether it's Landry Locker, who, God, I mean, he's been in the midday for like 8 years, and yet he's questioning Sarge and his question. Like, he's probably going to be 62 and still hosting the midday. Like, the only reason he still has a job is because John Lopez and Fig carry that show. But like, Landry is just awful and a fucking idiot. And then you got Vanessa Richardson, who has like no clue what the fuck she's doing. Like, she's the same person that was at the Deshaun rally pushing the narrative of Jack Easterby down everybody's throat because she wanted to get some audio clips from fans about Jack Easterby. Like, all these people suck at what they do. And it's no different. Like, we've been in the same spot when it comes to the media for 10, 15 years. Like, maybe John McClain was great, but like, outside of that, like, Aaron Wilson was the only good one we had, and now he's gone. So I don't know, man. That press conference just wasn't very telling. But I thought Sarge's question was a really good question. I wanted to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was more than fair. More than fair.
Yeah, but I mean, outside of that, did you learn anything else from the press conference? Anything telling to you?
No, I mean, he's a professional general manager. I mean, all I know is I wish that we had him as our GM 3 years ago. Like, he has yet to do anything that has made me feel less like that. I think that it's quite a shame that he's put in a situation where half the questions he gets are about Deshaun Watson, and he can't answer that. Like, that's just the thing about it, is he can't answer that question.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, what else we got for tonight?
Let's see. And not a whole hell of a lot.
Let me ask you this: Why do you think Justin Fields' stock is falling?
I think that you actually made a very great point on this. It may have something to do with the initials DM.
Yeah.
That, the NFL it's a fraternity. It's a boys club. It's the actions that Deshaun's team are taking.
Yeah.
They're going to impact other players, not just Deshaun. Now, what I think is interesting is there's always that one guy that, say Justin Fields falls to number 12. Like, I mean, he loses a couple $1 million, which, his slot bonus. But of course, one of the great points that I heard on it, and it was probably Texas Cleve that actually said it, is, he's going to fall. Watch Fields fall. But then David, I need you to say his last name. Mugoleta. Then he's going to demand something outside the slot bonus, which I don't even think he can do. So that's going to make things very, very interesting. In chat, though, they're saying that Fields dropped DM. Is that true?
I'm looking right now. No, I don't see that anywhere.
Okay.
Let me check again. No.
Okay. But
no, he's still with David.
I mean, a team will still take him. All he's gonna do is he's gonna cost himself money. I think that if he was on the fence between, if you're on the fence between Fields and Mac Jones for whatever reason, now all of a sudden you're gonna take Mac Jones instead of Fields. I think that may actually show part of the reason why the Texans were not as aggressive as they may have been in regards to dealing with Deshaun and pursuing trades. They just may not. You got Trey Lance and Justin Fields, half the quarterbacks, half the top tier quarterbacks that have connections to Deshaun and his team. They may just prefer to wait it out till next year, no matter what.
Yeah, the difference is, though, that David is the agent, and like Trey Lance is connected with Quincy Avery and things of that nature, but none of the other ones are tied to David as an agent, right?
Correct.
And there's all the conversations of David being the one that was in Deshaun's ear, was pushing for the request, was trying to take the power from the owners and give it to the players. I think the NFL, like you said, it's a fraternity. It's a close-knit group. Everybody knows everybody. If you're a part of the 32 teams in any form or fashion, you know everybody else. Those GMs, those owners, everybody in upper management, they all know each other. They all talk. They all know exactly what happened and how it was communicated and how it came up and all these things, right? They're also not dumb. Like they can see that.
I'm sure
Sean signed a contract a year ago, not even a year ago. It's been like 8 months. Signs a contract, has a losing season, then requests a trade, and all these other things that followed. Like the owners and everybody else and GMs all see that there's like a trend here. Why would Deshaun wake up one day and just decide, I'm done? I'm done with the Houston Texans because we went 4-12 or whatever we went. It's all been driven by David. We touched on the Easter bee pieces and where those all came from. And I wouldn't be shocked if Justin Fields is feeling a little bit of this from the fact that he is represented by David. And to be honest with you, I can't say that if I was another team, I would want to draft Justin Fields to deal with David either.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I think that is actually 100%. I think that is on point. I think that we'd thrown that out before, especially it's a narrative that you had pushed that David wanted to really use this as an opportunity to change the game for players. Like, it's no secret that NFL players look at the NBA and they look at it with jealousy. However, one of the big problems that they aren't getting is there's maybe 20 players in the entire NFL that could possibly have that sort of leverage, maybe 20. That is anything comparable than the NBA, that the average player in the NBA has. And the collective bargaining agreement wasn't decided by those 20 players. It was decided by the other 500 players in the NFL. And they gave up all the power. The players have zero power. So this has been a whole mess, and they played their whole card, which was the going through the media. That was their hand. That was it. You go through the media. That's it. You get all these guys throughout the media, and the media, mainly left-wing tilting. I'm even there too, where you want the players to have power, but that's not a realistic view of the business. And to even go back to what you were saying about other GMs around the league, looking at Deshaun, there may be some that were scared off because if he thinks he's going to go onto that team and dictate changes, like, that just doesn't happen. Like, even Pat Mahomes says, well, he'll give them their 2 cents, but they don't really ask him. Tom Brady said that, even going from New England to Tampa Bay. It's like, he'll give them his opinion, but they don't listen to him. They don't have to. There's no player that has the star power or has the capability to really dictate which direction an NFL franchise would go. Even though NFL quarterbacks are the most valuable position in all of sports, they don't have that sort of power, because if they threaten what Deshaun's doing, if he doesn't show up, he doesn't get paid. And that's it. That's the trump card.
well, I also think, like, if you look at just the league as a whole, right? Like, for how long has there been a narrative that Aaron Rodgers is either unhappy with management or unhappy with the Packers and doesn't like the fact that he's not being surrounded by the weapons and tools that he should as a top-tier quarterback? I mean, that's been going on for maybe 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. And Aaron was at the peak of all quarterbacks for, 3 of those 5 years, right? Considered the best, if not, right behind Tom Brady. And he knew that he could not get out of Green Bay. He knows that. He knows that he can't. It's just that's not the way the NFL works. And David wanted this to be, he wanted to pave the way. He wanted to be the pioneer. He wanted to be the guy that was able to break the mold and change the landscape of an entire league. What he didn't realize was the fact that these owners are so dug in on having this power that he was going to lose no matter what. On top of that, and I hate to say this, him being a black agent in a all-white dominated sport, from owners to GMs, it was just going to be tough for him to be able to even come close to that in general. It's just a world we live in. There was no way, and it sucks. Like, that part of it is totally different. He should be treated like every other agent, right? But at the end of the day, like, he was fighting another battle along with the changing of the landscape. And, I can't believe that it went to this far, but his other clients are going to start to feel the wrath a little bit. And I think, from the beginning of our conversation, I do think Fields is feeling that. And to be honest, I think Fields might be the best quarterback in this draft. Like,
yeah, I like Fields as a prospect a lot.
I do too. I would take him over Trevor Lawrence without any hesitation. I'm not a big fan of Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I think he has the potential to be good, right? But he's going to the Jags, so like it really doesn't even matter at this point.
Yeah.
Like he's never going to be anything. It'll probably be a Sam Darnold situation, or every other quarterback that goes to a shitty team. But Fields, I feel like from a talent perspective, is right there with Lawrence, maybe a little bit better. He looks like more of a natural thrower to me. His athleticism is off the charts. He's a bigger guy compared to Trevor Lawrence as far as from like stature and frame. So I don't know, but yeah, David's not doing him any justice. Everybody at Athletes First is really just in this downward spiral.
Well, I mean, just to go back what you were saying about Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy, it took like 3 years. Like the first stories to show that they had a disconnect was over 3 years ago. Or at this point, it was over 5 years ago. That's how long that disconnect has been there. And Aaron Rodgers, he was definitely the most powerful player in the sport for a while. He couldn't get a coach fired. Couldn't get a head coach fired. J.J. Watt actually was able to, but Aaron Rodgers couldn't. And I mean, different circumstances. So that does put it in perspective. And I think it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens to Fields. We'll have our answer next Thursday, but it would not surprise me at all if he drops. And it's a shame because if Trevor Lawrence wasn't in this draft, Fields is runaway the number one quarterback. Runaway. But all of a sudden, like Zach Wilson is not on the same level as Fields. Like I will put that out there right now that Wilson will not be as good of a quarterback as Fields. Like no doubt. Trey Lance has potential. Trey Lance, I mean, he has a whole lot of potential. He's just not been tested. He played one game last year and he had 2 pro days. More pro days than games. Like he couldn't help that, but he just hasn't been tested. And the level of competition that he played against was AA competition. It's not even top tier. So, yeah, no doubt. I'm with you. Justin Fields, hell of a prospect. And with everything going on, it will not shock me one bit if he actually ends up being the 4th or 5th quarterback. And if that happens, that's your answer. That also explains why Watson wasn't being traded.
And just to put this in perspective, like I don't believe that there's a way that Fields falls out of the first round just from a talent perspective. Even if for some reason he slides towards the end of the first round, somebody will trade up to ensure they get that 5th-year option with Fields. It's just what you do with quarterbacks. We see it time and time again. But at the end of the day, like it should be 1-2, maybe 1-2-3. If you like Lance better than Fields, just depending on scouting and things of that nature. But it should be 1-2, and in all likelihood, it looks like it won't be, which is really just kind of crazy. All right, Jerome, thank you for this the private chat. Weird how Nick has made it very hard for us to predict that what we will do in the draft because he's filled our needs very well. I think this is a great segue into kind of where we wanted to go, where I wanted to go at least on tonight's show. So I wanted to talk about a piece that seems to just be kind of left out. There seems to be a piece of this roster and the way that it's being constructed currently that's just being left out completely by everybody. And that's the fact that Nick is filling this roster and all the holes with competition. At every level, there is competition. And it's pretty much set in stone that outside of probably Tunsil, Zach, Roby, Justin Reed. Outside of that, I can't think of another guy. Those 4 are probably set in stone to play and start. Everything else is just completely up for grabs. And it's going to be the best players that play. You'll probably see a lot of changes come after week 1 or 2. But camp is going to be all about competition. And I think that's, at least I know for me, and I believe for you too, our biggest complaint with the Bill O'Brien era was the fact that there was no competition
Right.
Everything was kind of already predetermined. We pretty much knew what the roster was. Yeah, Brandon Cooks. Good job, Cody. Yeah, you're right. I missed that one. Brandon Cooks is another guy, so he's penciled in. But everybody else, it's really just it's a throw at the dartboard on figuring out who's going to play what position, who's going to start, who's going to get the most reps. And I just I don't know why that's not being talked about enough. I know it's really easy to shit on the Texans right now. I totally understand, and I get it. And those pieces probably do numbers nationally, right? But if you're a local media, like you're driving clicks to from Houston, I would think that shitting on a team probably isn't turning you into a ton of clicks. If you could take another route and start to talk about some of the things that the team is doing in a good manner. One of them would be the competition. When you look at everybody that's been signed, yeah, they're 1-year deals, couple 2-year deals there. But what they're doing is they're looking to build a roster beyond 2021, right? They're looking to find some guys that can play, that can earn another contract with the team, develop with the team, and be able to, stick around for a while. And that's why there's so many bodies. And that's why he's done so many transactions, is he's looking to field a competitive Texans team, no matter who's at quarterback.
Yeah.
Am I off here?
No. You nailed it. Like, that's exactly what he's done. This is a bunch of volume signings and 1-year signings to get people that are kind of on the same level into camp to see who will come and out compete the other. Like, this is what you have to do to build like a base, like a solid base for your team. Like, a lot of these 1-year contracts, I bet you they get turned into multiple year contracts before the start of the season. And that's how you kind of know who's having a good camp. But he wants guys in camp that are hungry and know that they have no guarantees. Like, it's a good reset. Now, is this going to instantly make us a playoff team? With Deshaun Watson, yeah, we would actually be pretty close. Like, if you get another year of Deshaun Watson like last year with a team that's competent around him, like, they don't even how bad the rest of the team was last year is just almost undescribable. Like, it truly is. Like, our defense was horrible. The interior of our offensive line was horrid. Like, as many things as we had going against us, to do as well as we actually did, to have as many games where we were within one score, like, that was Deshaun Watson. Like, he is that good of a quarterback. Now, if you put a team around him that's just not going to make a bunch of mistakes, they're going to go out there and do pretty much the bare minimum. Like, that's all they have to do is the bare minimum. And yeah, all of a sudden we will have a team that is very competitive that can go out there and compete for a playoff spot. Now, we've said this before, it all revolves around Deshaun. If he's not on the team, which, is a very real possibility, then this roster, it's almost like an expansion league team all over again. But they get a head start before they get the draft, because next year it's just a bunch of guys that are going to have to play hard to keep their job in the league. And everybody's on a contract. Everybody's on a contract year. That's usually when you get the most out of guys. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just think, though, like, there were some signings in there that were overlooked, and Jerome's on it again. Like, Philip Lindsay, that's a great signing. Like, that could really pay off. Desmond King, great signing. Like, that's another guy that could potentially be someone that could be here long term, right? Like, there are moves that they're making. The center, the name is slipping my mind, from Seattle.
Britt?
Yeah, Justin Britt. Not necessarily a home run, right? But shown stability at the center and was at least somewhat consistent with the Seahawks, and also has some flexibility. Can play guard as well. So when I just look at the roster currently constructed, like, I don't think he hit any home runs. I think as of right now, they're singles and doubles, like he said. But I do think that there are some players that he could eventually turn into home runs, and those being the names that I mentioned earlier. Desmond King really has a ton of potential, and would play a crucial role given the lack of cornerbacks on this roster that we've seen the last 2 years. I mean, it's been a stable of cornerbacks. Him and Roby would be a nice little piece. If John Reed can get going, like who knows who we draft. Cuts can happen. Like there's just so many different opportunities. And I like I said, I know it's easy to shit on the Texans for everything that they do. I totally get it. But man, like there are little things here. And another thing for me is no matter what happens with Deshaun Watson, and John, what are your thoughts on the fact that it's been almost 3 weeks since somebody has talked to one of the plaintiffs has talked to HPD, and yet there has been nothing announced in regards to criminal charges? Does that say anything to you?
I mean, it's kind of the nature of these type of cases that, unfortunately, if they waited till after the fact, like some of them wouldn't have gotten investigated at all. Like that's part of the reason why Busby's. That's part of the reason why it's all going through civil. Like just the nature of this, the he said, she said, and even how sometimes people kind of cope with these things. Like, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. There's not much that the police could do.
No. I don't mean. I just mean in the sense of like there's likely to be no criminal charges filed.
Right.
Exactly. And so the reason why I say that is because if this is all civil, no matter the outcome of the civil cases, Deshaun Watson will play quarterback in the NFL again. It's pretty much a given.
Yep.
There's no way out unless there were criminal charges and he was charged for felony for sexual assault or rape or anything like that.
Correct.
Those are the only two things that could really keep him from playing again in the NFL. But since they're all civil, he's going to be playing again. So the reason why I say that and the reason why I was going there was maybe it's not 2021, right? Maybe the civil litigation plays out by the end of the 2021 season. We have an idea. Maybe he's suspended for 6 games in 2022, whatever it would be. Either way, teams that will be trading for Deshaun Watson will be trading for 10 years of his service. Okay, he's only going to be 26 at that point. He's still going to have 10 years of playing quarterback. His value is not going to go down with these civil lawsuits. So you're looking at a year right now of finding little pieces here and there for the roster to build upon. Hopefully you hit on some guys in the draft, and then you go back into 2022 fully loaded with your normal draft picks, and then you're adding everything that you get back for Deshaun Watson. Then what is a rebuild really is, at that point, it's accelerated quite a bit. Now you're in a position where you can grab the guy that you want at quarterback. You can build other pieces on defense. You can draft guys. You know, if you do trade Deshaun, you're likely to get 2, 3, 4 first-round picks, right? And you're going to be, and there are multiple teams next year that have 2. Like, you can still make moves and field a very, very good team after 2021. So
that was actually, I actually made that point last week, almost verbatim. I'm sorry. I did not know that was the direction you were going. But yeah, no, I agree. And next year, here's the thing: if the Texans hold on to Deshaun for this season, regardless of anything, say he's suspended, say he decides to sit out, or even that he plays, him playing is actually almost the worst option for a rebuild, because if he doesn't play and they still have control of his contract, next year they can go after a quarterback with their own pick, which means they aren't trading for one of those early picks. There is more teams that they could be open to trading to, because their number one concern when trading Deshaun will be going to get a quarterback. Now, if they end up being so bad this year, which we kind of expect without Deshaun, like we expect them to be competitive, but they would actually be in position to draft a quarterback with their own pick. And I'm just rehashing this. So the range of teams that could trade for Deshaun would be a lot more, because they don't have to get such a high draft pick. They could get like 2, and they could get an extra like mid-round draft pick versus trying to get a top 5 pick. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. That makes total
So
sense.
it makes more, with everything going on, it just makes more sense for the Texans to try and hold on to him for just one more year. Even better if he doesn't play, because then they don't have to pay him and they'll get a better pick.
Yeah. Not only that, I think there's like another hypothetical that I don't know the likelihood of it, but I do think there's a chance of it, right? If this whole thing with Deshaun, let's say he settles or loses in court or whatever it would be, you have to wonder if he has anybody else that isn't on the athletes first team that is guiding him and telling him, look, you're going to have to ditch athletes first. And then you have to wonder if he does that, what that means for him to, potentially be around, right? Like he's close with David. He's close with Quincy. So the chances of him ditching them are probably pretty slim. But you never know. We don't know what exactly is happening in behind closed doors. We don't know what the conversations are being had. We don't know who's leading who. Not only that, like you have to wonder, like, will he show up to OTAs? Will he show up to training camp? Like you would think that he would have to repair that good guy image that he had prior to the allegations. And I would think the best way to do that is to show up and work. I don't know if that's the thing. Patrick's here. He can maybe chime in. But I would assume that when it comes time to reporting, if he's not on the exempt list, that he would show up to work.
Well, you're also forgetting the one more thing about getting rid of athletes first, that he would actually have ammunition, is apparently athletes first could have squashed all this. And they more or less told Busby to, fuck off. In which Busby said, well, if you tell me that, or if you treat it like that, in 2 weeks, you're going to have Rusty Harden calling me back, which is what happened.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that athletes first did mess up that entire situation. Especially with like some of the wording that was in like in the emails to Tony Busby, basically saying that they were okay with settling, but just not on that price. Like, what's the difference at that point of 50,000 and another 50,000, right? You're Deshaun Watson. You just signed $160 million contract. Like, that's like $100,000 to keep my reputation and to keep it moving. Like, that sounds like a pure win. And the way that they handled that situation wasn't good. And then the way that David strong-armed the Texans organization, that was just another ally that David could have had during this entire situation. The Texans could have helped through this process, and who knows what they would have done or not done. But at the end of the day, like that, they don't want their quarterback to be a part of this, because it hurts their image as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just, you look at this whole situation, you have to say that athletes first. David and Brian and the attorney Scott Fedberry or whatever, and even Quincy, like all these guys are to blame for a lot of the mishandling and mismanaging of the situation, and they deserve a ton of the smoke.
Well, I mean, regardless of anything, like if you throw out all the accusations, you can say that this whole thing has been handled poorly. Like even if you get rid of the accusations, you get rid of that whole part of it. This whole thing has been handled poorly by Deshaun and his team. Now, when you add on the accusations that they really haven't done any better, I mean that's beyond poor how that was handled. Now, ultimately, if Deshaun's guilty, it doesn't matter how poorly they handled it, because they're in a no-win situation. But it's been a hot mess, and it's been kind of eye-opening. And I don't know. I don't even know what I hope from it. It's been a train wreck. You're muted.
Let's play this game. In your eyes, what is the best outcome for the Texans with everything that's going on with Deshaun? What would be the outcome that you would say, all right, this makes me feel better as a fan?
At this point?
Yeah. Like, are
Um,
you at the point now where you're like, I want Deshaun gone? It doesn't matter at this point.
Pretty much if it's the right return.
Yeah.
At this point, there was a point where I said that there was no return that is worth Deshaun. And from a talent level, that's still true. But if you're able to turn them into enough assets and you can start rebuilding the team and even just rebuilding us back to the point where we were just competitive year in, year out, like I could take that because it's not worth this. Like his team and his mindset on this, it's not worth it.
So getting a bunch of picks back and moving on from Deshaun would be your best case.
Correct. What about you?
Yeah, best case for me would be yeah, Chris is right. Like I don't well like I like Fields and I like Lawrence. You know, I like Trey Lance.
Mm-hmm.
Even I like Zach Wilson. I don't think any of them are as good as Deshaun Watson.
No,
And
and
I
I'm in
don't
100% agreement there.
and I don't know if there's another one next year either, right? But you never know what you have until you have it, right? So you could hit on one of these quarterbacks and they could end up being Deshaun Watson-esque, right? They could be at the level of Deshaun, but the likelihood is that they're not going to be. And with that being said, like I'd rather have the next 10 years of Deshaun Watson, even with everything that's happened, all the disgruntledness, the bad reports, the trade requests, the allegations, all the issues that have come from all of this. I would rather weather the storm and go with Deshaun Watson at quarterback for the next 10 years than trade Deshaun Watson.
You see, there's a couple issues. I I don't disagree with you. Like you're allowed to have your own opinion on it, and I understand where you're coming from. But there's a couple issues that
Are you sure? Yeah. Are you
yes,
sure I'm allowed to have my own opinion?
you are definitely allowed to have your own opinion because I don't want to make it sound like I'm disagreeing with you. I'm just clarifying a little bit more on where I'm at because I agree with you 100%. Like you don't draft another Deshaun. When you drafted Deshaun, when we drafted him, no one thought we were drafting Deshaun. He doesn't last to the 12th pick if you think he is what he turned into be, like on the field. Like you don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know when you're going to hit on a quarterback. There is that is one of the hardest positions in all of sports to draft for. Somebody pulled out like the list of the last 20 quarterbacks that were taken in the top three, and there wasn't a single person on that list that you would rather have over Deshaun. Like it is hard. It is extremely hard to find a good quarterback. Like it there's no way around it. Like needle in a haystack. Hardest thing to do is to draft a franchise quarterback, to find a franchise quarterback. And giving up on Deshaun, I know that it's signing up for 20 years of heartache that we've already had. And then it's even going to be worse because you're going to be able to watch Deshaun succeed on another team. I get that. But with Deshaun, even if all this goes away, even if everything settles, even if it calms down, there's been rumors of Deshaun having off the field issues to an extent. You got to remember that it wasn't like major issues, but 2 years ago, Deshaun never won at Houston and at the early game. There was always rumors that he had too much going on around him during the game, and it was getting leaked out by players and some of the media people. Not the ones that were close to him, but guys that were on the periphery, so it was kind of dismissed. It's kind of one of those whatever. Deshaun's still out there being Deshaun. But these things didn't just kind of creep up out of nowhere. There's been rumors out of Clemson that he was always a different person than what his image was, and he was very conscious of his image. Like that came out of Clemson, and Clemson's a cult. Like Clemson's like A&M on steroids. They don't say anything bad. Like I'm pretty sure anybody that ever said anything negative about Deshaun from Clemson has been excommunicated from Clemson, and they're not allowed back in the city limits. But those things have existed. And then you look at this whole thing with all the drama, with him wanting out of the city, with him wanting to be traded. It all gets smoothed over. But who's to say 2 years from now all this stuff doesn't boil back up again, and we have to go through all this all over again?
Here's how. Here's how. no matter what happens, even in a situation where he beats all 22 cases, this man's reputation is forever tarnished. No matter what. There's going to be the crowd that thinks he did it and the crowd that believes he didn't. From this point forward, that's going to be the conversation around Deshaun Watson, no matter what. I don't think with that he'll have the power that he did or thought he had prior to this. I think that goes away, right? I also think this kind of serves as like somewhat of a humble pie. Like, okay, like your secrets are out, whether guilty or not. We have an understanding of who you are off the field. The only way you can correct that is by showing up and performing. And then two, the reason why I think that like this, I'd rather have Deshaun is like Deshaun was so good prior to all this. Like all he has left now to really turn this around is to win for the next 10 years. The only thing he can do, the only way he can change everything, the only way that he can get back or close to back to what he was is by winning. And I just can't think of a better story than him doing it with the Texans, given everything that they did. So like if you're writing a movie right now about this entire situation, the best ending for that movie would be Deshaun Watson coming back, whatever happens, and then him being a Texan and being the best quarterback that he can be. Like that's the best way this movie can end. And so that's kind of why I lean in that direction. I do agree with you, and I totally understand. Like it could, right? But I don't know. I think it's kind of hard to get back to that power, that ball of power, that approach in life when you're served this ridiculous slice of humble pie. Like this is a totally different level than what most people will ever experience. And I don't think Deshaun will ever be the same after something like this.
No, and that's a fair point. And we've talked a little bit about maybe he has a little bit of Kobe, if he has a little bit of that FU energy. And if he does, like what you'd find out this coming season. Because then he would just be dedicated on winning to restore his brand. And he'd be doing it with anger. And I mean, that's a good point. That's a very good point. And I have to agree with you on it.
Yeah, it was just something I've been thinking a lot about. Like, I would love for him to obviously stay here and just be a Texan forever and win. But at the end of the day, like, I just look at it. It is very similar to the Kobe situation, right? Like, you guys, I hate to say this because it sounds awful to say, especially nowadays in 2021. But like, I don't believe Kobe raped the lady that worked at the hotel. Everybody can have their own opinions. It was all civil suit. There was no criminal charges. Nobody really knows except for her and Kobe Bryant. But, there are some facts that we can get into off air that kind of would show that, it is what it is. But Kobe came back and just annihilated the league forever. And he was able to rebuild his entire reputation. I mean, completely. And the man cheated on his wife. Like, he owned it. He admitted it. Like, he was the bad guy of the media for a very, very, very long time. But what he did was he won, and then it all came. And then when he passed, he was celebrated at a level that I don't know I've seen somebody celebrated that was an athlete. I can't think of another athlete that has passed that was celebrated in the way that Kobe was when he passed a year ago. So, and not to like, definitely for anybody that knows me, I'm not downplaying the death of Kobe Bryant or anything like that, or even the stuff he went through. But I mean, I just think that ultimately these situations change people and give you the opportunity to really learn as a person and adapt and become better.
Yeah. And I mean, that's your point. And I want to say that I hope Deshaun has it in him, because to me, ultimately, Like, my goal is to hopefully see a Super Bowl win in my lifetime. And if he's going to be this dramatic, I don't know if that's going to happen. Like, point blank, that's just how it is for me. If he's going to be this dramatic, why would players ever follow him to come play here? So he's got a lot of rehabbing to do, and a lot of it's just I just couldn't deal with this every year or even every other year where he's wanting out of Houston or he's threatening not to sign a contract with Houston. Because I want to see a Super Bowl in my lifetime, and I want to feel confident that that's what the quarterback wants to do in my city.
Yeah, no, it's all fair. That's all fair. And Chris, you're 100% right. And that was also, just for those that aren't aware of the case, that is in the span of 24 hours. Not going to mention that on air, but yes, you are 100% right, Chris. So, all right, we got 9 minutes. I won't be on next week because the draft is on Thursday, though. Ideally, where do you want to see this team go? I think that there's a good chance that with some of Nick Caserio's comments recently on Texans All Access, that those 5th to 7th round picks might be packaged and sent up and moved to get higher in the 3rd. Maybe even that 3rd is packaged. I'm not sure, but this draft is a lot different than most years. There was no combine. Everybody's heavily relied on tape, which for most of us, like that scout or look at players and watch, like that's what we're used to anyways. But for the scouts and GMs and things of that nature, like, this is a new year for the draft. This isn't a highly touted draft class from a lot of people I respect. What are your thoughts on the draft, and how can Nick Caserio navigate through this draft and be successful?
So I'm pretty sure that it was Caserio or somebody was talking essentially how after the 5th round, it's almost worth it to just have two undrafted free agency versus 1 5th round pick. Like, it's just something kind of crazy, where I think that's kind of the point you were making, where I wouldn't be surprised to see if they are aggressive trying to trade up. The picks that have the most value are 2nd and 3rd round picks. Like, those are your highest hit rates, not your highest star rates, but your highest chance of signing players that end up on your 2nd contract. So those are players that are typically valued the most. That's what you build your team around, the guys to get to their 2nd and 3rd contract. How you get those guys is you pick in the 2nd and 3rd round. So I more or less expect we are next to last in the entire league in draft capital. We have 8 picks, which is actually surprising considering we don't have or it's actually surprising that we even have 8 picks when we don't have a 1st or a 2nd round pick. But I think that Caserio is going to try and move up, and we may only end up with like 3 or 4 picks. Like, he's signed so many free agents, and that coming from that Patriots point of view, where he's trying to look at all the mid-level schools, that he's going to want to bring in a bunch of undrafted free agents. So just roster space makes it look like we're going to try and move up.
So you expect him to move up?
Yeah, I'm expecting it.
Yeah, I would expect it too. Do you think there's any chance that he taps into the 2022, kind of looks at it as like a savings account, since he has Deshaun Watson that might not be able to be traded, and says, hey, I can use next year's 1st to get up?
Part of me wants to kind of see that, like the NBA style almost, where you go into the draft and you don't have a 1st rounder, but you trade next year's 1st rounder, and you just do that indefinitely. I actually thought Bill O'Brien was going to do that. So if Caserio does it, I will be shocked, but impressed.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like I said, looking at it like a savings account, right? Like if for some reason they aren't able to move, if everything continues down the path it looks like it's on, where they can't move Deshaun by draft night, then do they tap into that savings account and know that they're going to at least get 3 firsts back next year, and give away their original 2022, first or second to try to move up a ton to grab a couple guys that they think could be impact players. So ideally for me, like I know Ryan was mentioning, like BPA is this is the first time that we can do a full draft of BPA. I really hope that it's BPA, but I also really hope it's BPA only on the defensive side of the ball. Like I honestly, I'm fine with the way the offense is currently constructed. Like I think there's enough weapons. I think they did enough with the offensive line in the offseason to really build competition in the positions that were needed, center and guard. And they made the trades with Marcus Cannon, so like there's tons of flexibility on the offensive line. Mike Devlin is no longer the offensive line coach, so you have to hope that the guy that we have is just 10% better, because that's Mike Devlin was absolute trash. So when I look at the offense, I don't see any position outside of the quarterback that I am screaming for or really want. I think the offense is kind of set. But defensively, there's still so many holes to fill. That D-line needs almost a complete retool. The secondary outside of Desmond King and Bradley Roby is somewhat of a need as well. Will Lonnie work out at safety? I do think Lonnie will work out at safety, but will he work out at safety? I don't know. So maybe you grab a safety. But ultimately, I'd love to see them really just address everything in the defense. So if that means giving up those picks from 5th to 7th to move back into the 3rd a couple times or whatever it would be, and grab some key players on the defensive line, grab Peyton Turner from U of H. Maybe you can grab Asante Samuel Jr. Players like that can give you can be pieces of a defense for the future. Ideally for me, that would be a successful draft for Nick Caserio, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm 100% in agreement. They outside the quarterback, because who knows with the quarterback, we definitely need to focus more on the defense. Definitely. But I honestly, there's enough players there that I still think it doesn't even matter, offense or defense. Best player available, just take them. If you're confident in the player. Granted, I do agree that it makes more sense to do just best player available on the defense because the defense has more holes. But I mean, even other than Tunsil and Howard and Titus Howard, 2 years from now, what player on the offense can you confidently say is still going to be a heavy contributor on the offense? So, if best player available, get him. If the best player available is a slot. Well, hopefully. I mean, hopefully that Devlin didn't fuck him up too badly last year.
That's sharpening though.
But I mean, other than that, 2 years from now, even though we have 2 slot receivers currently on the roster, if a slot receiver is the best player available, grab them, because 2 years from now you're still going to need them. You still need to build your roster like that.
It's a deep draft for slot guys too.
It is. Yeah, it is. Apparently, this is a very, very good draft for receivers.
All
especially
right.
slot receivers.
And I guess any questions? Anybody in the chat got questions? I guess we'll take a couple questions before we head out. Usually, we used to have Jordan do questions, and then now with all the changes and stuff, that doesn't happen. So, any questions? Anybody in the chat? We'll give you guys a couple minutes. How about Falcon and Winter Soldier? Everybody just glued to their TV.
It's a good show,
dude. That show is freaking awesome.
Good show.
I feel like I watch each episode like back to back again because they're so good. Did you see that they grabbed Emilia Clarke for the Secret Invasions?
I did.
That's huge.
I think these Marvel TV series are going to definitely change television.
Yeah, I agree.
They're just going to change how everybody just even approaches it. Like they're so good.
Tony, that show was very woke, especially this last episode. I would agree. All right. Any draft crushes? My draft crush is undraftable. I don't know if you mean that we can draft, but my draft crush is J.C. Horn, which I did a film study and breakdown with Jordan and actually Dylan a while about 6 months ago, and that was he is I know Certain is a great corner as well, but J.C. Horn to me is I think he might be the best player in the draft. I love J.C. Horn.
J.C. Horton's my boy. Best player on South Carolina. He was the best player on South Carolina with a team that had Javon Kinlaw and Deebo Samuel on it. He was still the best player. I've been screaming his name that he should be a top 10 pick. Anytime somebody mentions him on Twitter, I usually go nuts. So, definitely understand. Would love to trade up and go get him. However, that's not very likely. Let's pretend we had the 6th pick. Who would you pick with the 6th pick?
I would take J.C. Horn. I mean,
do you think he'll still be there?
At 6?
He will be.
Yeah, at 6 he'll be there. There won't be a corner that goes until maybe top 10, maybe. But either him or Devontae Smith. Both, in my opinion, are game changers for a team. I think Devontae Smith. I think Devontae Smith is the best wide receiver in the draft, but that guy's a freaking game wrecker, dude.
Yeah.
But I would go J.C. Horn. But I love the cornerback position, so it's just, it's automatic. I'm always going to go corner. What about
Fair
you?
Enough. It's tough because I love J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn's my boy, but I would probably actually go Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts, yeah, that makes sense.
Kyle Pitts.
Only reason I wouldn't go a weapon is because we don't know who the quarterback is, or if we'll ever even have a quarterback.
Which is fair, but the reason that I would go Kyle Pitts over J.C. Horn is just positional scarcity.
Yeah, true.
I think that Horn could absolutely end up being like a top tier corner for a very long time, but it's a lot harder to find that game breaker at tight end. And it's amazing when you have one of those players at tight end, how good quarterbacks always look all of a sudden.
Yeah. All right. Next one. Favorite draft prospects. I think we just did that. Do you see us cutting David Johnson if you draft a running back? No. Lawson and Jenkins is a much better defensive end. Tanda, both guys have good numbers and are untapped potential. Also excited for Blacklock with the new DC. I would agree. I think Blacklock seems to be kind of not talked about enough. Chris says the biggest need is pass rushers, interior run stoppers. I agree. The D linemen after the second round are just, from what everybody says, is trash. I haven't done a ton of digging. Jordan's found some. Zach Hicks has found some. If you guys aren't following Zach Hicks on Twitter, make sure you guys do that. That guy does a ton of film breakdown, specifically for the Colts, but gives you a good idea of guys to look for. Clay Travis sucks anyways. Tony so who cares? That guy's a freaking, oh my God, that guy's awful. Yeah, I agree, Jerome. Smith's going to get stronger. Way better without Devlin. Why haven't we restructured Roby yet? I think because after this year, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe after the 2021 season, we can cut him and save a ton of money if we don't keep him. I think it's like not a ton, but like $9 million. Kyle Pitts, who's tight end number 1 at this point? It's Kyle Pitts for sure. Will Duke Ejiofor play? Ooh. If he can stay healthy, he'll have a chance. Sounds like the way that released. Was he released?
I thought he was released.
Let's look. I think he was actually. No. I don't think so. Nope. I don't see it anywhere.
Huh. Nope, he hasn't. I'm absolutely amazed by that.
He'll have a chance. It's going to be a competitive training camp. Everybody's going to get a shot.
Yeah, there's no doubt that he has talent if he can stay healthy, but he hasn't been on the field since 2018. So hopefully he can stay healthy. I would like nothing more than for Ejiofor to do well, and we'll see.
Tight end number 1 for the Texans. It's definitely Akins. That's without question. That hasn't changed. It's Jordan Akins. Especially now with that big old Darren Fells there taking snaps away. I think we're trading Roby during the draft. That's not a bad thought. That's one piece that you could potentially move and maybe get something back for. How's the pool coming? It's they laid cement last week. They're bringing in the tile tomorrow. Could be mid-May, but they could be June. Who knows? But all of Texans Unfiltered listeners and everybody are invited over for a barbecue. You guys can come swimming. Don't tell my wife I told you guys that, because she won't be excited that I invited a bunch of strangers. But you guys are all good guys. All right, how much say does Lovey have on personnel at this point? Speculation, but I think probably all of the coaching staff probably has a pretty good they probably are able to put their 2 cents forward on quite a bit of different things. And then if you just look at the way that the roster and free agents were handled by Nick, they were pretty much geared towards that Tampa too. So I would say he's probably got some input. What would you say, John?
Oh, definitely. Just look at the players that we brought in. Like, I mean, granted, I'm sure Nick, the players that we brought in were brought in to run a Tampa too. And the Patriots ran at 3-4 for so long that I'm sure that Lovey Smith had quite a bit of feedback on that. But I mean, Caserio, I mean, he's proven himself to be pretty smart. So who knows? Maybe he did it all on his own.
Yeah. Yeah, Gary and Conley. I wish. I don't know what's going on. Maybe he never healed. He said he was trying to get re-signed. I would love to sign him and just give him another shot. How much better will our run game be with Lindsey and Ingram sharing snaps to David? Oh, I think the three-headed monster of those three. I actually think the running back room is probably, if there's one position group I'm extremely excited about entering the 2021 season, I would say it's actually the running back room. You have three guys who all do things a little different and are all have shown excitement. And I definitely think it'll be fun, especially if we bring over that Baltimore Ravens running style. Looks like they're being competitive with the offensive line and guard and center. So those were the two areas of weakness last year for the run game. So I don't see any reason why the run game shouldn't be any better.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, we'll probably be frustrated for fantasy, but you got three different run backs with three different strengths, and hopefully they just figure out a way to use them correctly. If they do, then they'll be fine. They'll probably be the strong point of the team.
Yeah. What has been your favorite memory of Texans Unfiltered? So far, I don't know. I guess mine would probably be the first event we threw. I thought that was a ton of fun. The second event was great too.
The first event was probably the coolest because I think that was when I really realized how many people actually listened to us, surprisingly, which I couldn't believe. And then maybe just the meetups here in Austin, where I was surprised that people actually drove from Houston to go to a Twin Peaks. Granted, it was to watch a playoff game, but still, people driving all over the state to come watch a game with us, which, I mean, absolutely amazing. Y'all are awesome.
Yeah. Who will be covering training camps? Nobody at Texans Unfiltered, as we were reminded by Vanessa Richardson that we don't have media credentials, but she does. You know, John, it was really weird. I found that entire interaction, like, I don't think I've been told Nana Nana Boo Boo since I was like 8.
Yeah, like that was so strange for her, the way that, like, what the hell? Y'all had a decent relationship. Like, you talked to her before.
Yeah,
like,
no,
multiple times.
She told me at the rally that I'm great at what I do, and that she's surprised I don't have a career in sports. And then I told her that they don't make enough money.
maybe that was the start of it. But dude,
Nana Boo Boo, though, that was weird.
That reaction, because what you said was, I mean, it was fair. Your response to her was fair and was professional, and that was her response. Like, you suck up to Deshaun. You don't have media credentials. Essentially let the professionals do this. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah. Considering she got her job because somebody else lost their job, and then not only that, like she sucks up to Deshaun's camp. Like she told me who her sources were with Deshaun's camp at the rally. Like she talks to Brian Burney all the time. Like she, like I found the entire exchange a bit strange. I could not believe that my opinion struck a chord with her the way that it did. I didn't feel like I was abrasive in any way. I just threw my opinion
I
out
don't know.
there.
Maybe she was just having a bad day.
Is Pat even trying to get the job at the Chronicle? If Pat is, great for Pat. I don't know. I'm sure nothing against Pat. I love Pat. He knows that, but I'm pretty sure they're looking for somebody with media experience, I would assume, for something like that. But if Pat does, great. He wouldn't be a part of TU. I doubt it. I mean, he'd always be a part of TU, but wouldn't be able to actually be a part of TU. Should the Texans draft Kellen Mond if available? I honestly, I don't know enough about Mond, Trask, or Davis Mills. I watched a little bit of Mills. I saw some potential there with Davis Mills at Stanford, but I didn't watch a ton of snaps to be able to say like he's a guy you should draft in the third round and see where he goes. So honestly, I don't know. Are there any of the quarterbacks in the third that you'd be okay with them drafting?
I don't know. I know that Newman is the big hot one, but he was never very impressive to me. Newman is the quarterback. He started out at Wake Forest. He went to Georgia. He was a big transfer. Very talented guy, very big guy. But he was fine at Wake Forest, but the fact that he was transferring instead of going pro is kind of my opinion on that. Like, I think he'll be a solid backup, but I don't see him as a guy that has like this untapped potential that hasn't blossomed. And like, that's what you're kind of looking for if you're looking for a guy to be your starter in the third round. Like, what guy got the short end of the stick on development? What guy has the tools? And there's none to me that jump out, but I wouldn't have predicted Russell Wilson that year. So, I mean, Russell Wilson was a grad transfer from NC State to Wisconsin. So, who knows?
Yeah. Is Tyrod being overlooked? I'll say this. I know that there's a lot of people that are grasping onto the hope that Tyrod could be like a guy for the next 3 to 4 years. I mean, there's a chance. He's never had an opportunity to really start without being pushed from behind by another quarterback. But it's just, that's the biggest thing. Tony hit it on the head. Like he does play a little too safe. And then two, it's just hard to believe that a 30-year-old is going to put it together now to be a starter, right? Like that's the problem I have. I don't know if he's being overlooked. I think he's capable. I think if we get the best of Tyrod Taylor, we can go 8-8.
Like, Tyrod Taylor is a guy that there was a time, when we had Brock Osweiler, for example, that had we had Tyrod Taylor, the team would have been better. He's a guy that doesn't really lose you games, but he doesn't win you games. And he also has all these crazy things kind of happen to him because of his style of play. And it's not to say that he's reckless by any stretch. Like, I wouldn't go there.
And getting a punctured lung by a masseuse.
Yeah, that's just bad luck. But he always gets hurt, and then the guy on the bench comes on and is a starter. And he never loses the job really because of play. It's always because he gets injured in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
So
Ryan Finley, I liked Ryan Finley coming out of college. I actually thought he showed a ton of potential. I can't say I've watched enough snaps of him in the NFL to say that there's a good chance that Ryan Finley competes for that job. But I will say this: I think every position is a competition. So if Ryan Finley beats out Tyrod Taylor, then Ryan Finley is going to start. I don't know. I don't know enough about Ryan Finley at this point to be able to tell you. I'm going to be 100% honest. All the film watching and things of that nature have gone to the wayside as all this stuff is unraveled. I never thought I'd have to scout a quarterback again, prior to the end of the 2020 season. So I haven't really dug into that bag to look and see. But I do remember when he came out of college, I did like his tape. He has great touch. He carved us up. And I wouldn't put it past, maybe Nick identified him and that's why. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't.
Well, there was talks coming out that he would have been the perfect quarterback for that Patriots system. Very, very accurate, quick decisions with those mid-range throws. Essentially, he's going to be Brian Hoyer. Like that's kind of his ceiling. Can he be Brian Hoyer? Which, I mean, means he wouldn't be the worst quarterback in the league.
Is that Ryan Reyna in our chat?
How do y'all stay sane?
Or is that Ryan Pereira? Yeah, is that Ryan Pereira or Ryan Reyna?
I don't know.
Because that's all that my answer is dictated by which Ryan that is. Oh yeah, and I forgot about Chris Conley too. I forgot all about Conley.
Yeah, I mean it's just more. There's depth on the team, but it's not Pro Bowl level depth. It's slightly above replacement level depth, which there was a time where we really needed it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Tony Yayo, if you throw out that playoff game, Hoyer was fine for us. But that playoff game, I mean, yeah, that was a meltdown.
Oh, he's Ryan from the Texans Thoughts team. I didn't know you were on it. I didn't know Texans Thoughts had a team, but that's cool. How do we stay sane?
Who says we're sane?
I just am who I am every day, and I don't really change. So I'll fly off sometimes, and I just am me. I don't know. KPL. What's KPL, Jerome?
Oh, it's that linebacker.
Oh, the one that Jordan's in love with.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. No, there's a couple guys that could really be dark horses. Like, I guess that's why I really don't understand why everybody's so ready to throw away the Houston Texans already. I get it. No Deshaun. The team's not going to be the same, and that's fine. But like, we've watched NFL teams maneuver through not having quarterbacks. Bears won with a Super Bowl with Rex Grossman as their quarterback. I mean, like, there's just we almost beat New England in New England with Brock Osweiler as our quarterback. Like, it's anything can happen.
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
Kevin Pierre-Louis.
Yeah.
Jordan's in love with him. I'm not quite sure why Jordan sees the good tape and falls in love with guys sometimes. Like, the guy has 4.5 speed, like, so he's fast. He would have been probably the second fastest linebacker on our team last year, which we desperately need some speed on our defense. But I just don't see. I don't know.
I haven't watched it. I haven't watched this film. I'll trust Jordan's eye. If Jordan loves them, Jordan tends to look at things through the same lens as I do. So if that's what he sees, then that's what he sees. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We're gonna have training camp here soon. So yeah. All right. With that being said, I guess that is it for Texans Unfiltered. John, we'll catch you guys next week, and then draft, and then training camp starts May 24th or something like that. and then we're back to our regularly scheduled program of Texans Unfiltered. So that'll be me and John here kicking off the rest of the offseason. We won't have any special guests because, well, we're the bad guys of the media. It's just what comes with being the bad guys of the media, telling the other ones that they suck. So with that being said, I'm Young Ari Gold signing off for Texans Unfiltered. We'll catch you guys next week. Damn, Astros lost again?
Yeah. I don't even know what to say anymore.
All right.
Go Houston Sports.